Okay, so good morning everyone. Last class we had stopped till why respiration is considered as exothermic reaction. I had given a good explanation to it, and I have mentioned the types of reaction. In that I had done combination reaction and decomposition reaction. Okay, hopefully I also taught how to balance a chemical reaction and what you mean by chemical equation, what happens when a chemical reaction takes place, characteristic of it, and also certain reactions I had mentioned. So today's class I'm going to continue the next part in it, that is displacement reaction. Okay, now displacement reaction. I had told you before priorly in the previous class that if you understand the meaning of the word, you will be able to define your own definition. Okay, so this is a must, we should remember that. What do you mean by displacement? Okay, displacement is nothing but a replace of a position or any object. Okay, so similarly here atoms are replaced by another atom. So basically I'm saying there are certain metals which are more reactive and less reactive. Okay, so let us take an example and try to understand what you mean by displacement reaction, and then we'll start to define it. Okay, for example, if you take CuSO4 plus Fe, you will get FeSO4 plus Cu. Here CuSO4 is nothing but copper sulfate, and Fe obviously you know it is iron, and again what you get, the product formed here is iron sulfate or ferric sulfate and copper. What has happened here? Here iron is the atom iron here is more reactive. The metal iron here is more reactive than copper. Okay, more reactive than copper. So what has happened? The iron has replaced less reactive metal, that is a copper. So the more reactive metal displacing or replacing the copper to give a product, we call it as displacement reaction. As simple as that. Okay, so we can take one more example, that is Zn plus CuSO4, you will get ZnSO4 plus Cu. Same displacement reaction is taking place. What is happening here, guys? Here one of the more reactive metal replaces or displaces a less reactive metal to give a product, we call it as a displacement reaction. Okay, examples are given, please go through this. Okay, now remember this reaction is important. I'll tell you why. For example, if you have copper sulfate solution which is blue in color, okay, it's when you get an aqueous solution of a copper sulfate, it is a blue in color. What you do is, when you add an iron nail to it, okay, the copper, whatever copper is there, is displaced on iron, deposited on iron. Okay, iron nail. So what is happening? A displacement reaction. Once it is displaced, you will get a dirty green color solution. So basically it is indicating that displacement reaction has taken place. So remember, color of copper sulfate solution is a blue in color, and iron sulfate solution, once the displacement reaction has happened, you will get the green color solution. Okay, so remember this, very important. Okay, next what you have to remember is, next is the next part of this, which is called as double displacement reaction. Now displacement तो समझ में आ गया, अभी बोलो what do you mean by double displacement reaction? Okay, what do you understand by double displacement रिएक्शन. भाई मैंने लास्ट क्लास भी बोला था RXN मतलब रिएक्शन ही है, उसको शॉर्ट फॉर्म में लिख रहा हूँ मैं. ओके, नाउ रिमेंबर a reaction in which new compounds are formed by displacement of or exchange of ions. What I'm telling, a reaction in which new compound is formed, that means product is formed by exchange of ions. Okay, you know ions, ions means you know, no, ions are nothing but charges, nothing but charges. We have two types of charges, positive and negative charges, right? So exchange between these things, exchange of ions in a compound to give a new compound or new product where the product formed is insoluble. This reaction we call it as a displacement reaction. Okay, let us understand with the basic example. Okay, so that is Na2SO4 plus, okay, BaCl2 will give you NaCl plus BaSO4. Okay, what do you get? NaCl plus BaSO4. Now I'm not going to balance this, okay, because you might see in LHS Na is 2, but in RHS it is 2. You just have to put 2 here, okay, and everything became proper. It's already balanced. Understanding? Now remember, what is Na2SO4? It is sodium sulfate. Okay, now what is BaCl2? It is a barium chloride. What is NaCl? Come on guys, you know this. It is sodium chloride or common salt, sodium chloride, and barium sulfate, okay. So do you see, you remember that metals are always electropositive, okay, metals are always what? Electropositive. And what about non-metals? They are electronegative, okay. So if you see here, not just the metal which is being displaced, but ions are also displaced to give a precipitate. Here BaSO4 is a insoluble substance, a precipitate formed. What do you mean by precipitate? A precipitate is nothing but a insoluble substance, okay. So what is BaSO4? An insoluble substance, okay. So you can define it in such a way that see here, ions are exchanged, okay, ions are exchanged to give a new compound, and that compound is a insoluble substance. That means such type of reaction where you get a insoluble substance or you get a precipitate can also be called as a precipitate reaction, okay. You know the word, what do you mean by insoluble, no? Yes, okay. So this is what we call it as a displacement, double displacement reaction, okay. Hopefully you have understood this. So next part about this is this is the one example. There are others also which you can go through your textbook and note down about it, okay. So but my main idea is you need to understand what is going on. If you understand the reaction, then rest of the things will be pretty easy. So basically nothing will be fed to you, okay, because if everything is spoon fed to you, you will be lazy and you will not try to learn anything. So basically what we have to do, we are compelling you to think, okay. So if you are to grab your more interest, to make you more interested in the subjects and all, you have to understand the concept and try to go through as many examples, many examples, so that you understand what is this double displacement reaction, okay. There are several examples given in textbook. Please go through that, okay. And next we are going to learn about is pretty much a little bit is remaining. That is, next topic is for us oxidation reduction, redox, okay, then corrosion, then rancidity. Okay, so rancidity. Okay, so these many things we have to learn, and they will be done with the chapters. Okay, after this I will make a we will go for certain questions which will be helpful for your board exams, as KV is going to get has just been it's like only 3 months is remaining, I believe, for the final exam. Before that you need to solve as much as question as possible. For example, if you finish your revision by December, Jan entire month, or I believe as much as revision you get, that is good. So if you finish your revision by November and you go for around December, if you start solving all the previous year papers, that is 10 years ka paper, if you read, if you solve, I think it will be way more than enough for you to get more than 95% in your 10th standard board, provided we are just teaching science and maths. But I believe you need to study other subjects also. Okay, for that the best way to learn is you need to have a set of 10 years question paper and sit and solve it. Okay, learn the answers, understand, go through videos to learn these things and all. Okay, so I believe the best material you can get is online पे आजकल तो बहुत सारा मिलता है, so but I prefer buy an Oswald book, okay, which has all the 10-year sample paper, which is really helpful and which has helped most of the people, okay, most of the CBSE people. And nowadays in state schools also they have started something called as a LPA, I believe. Okay, so that LPA is nothing but similar to competency based questions, and I believe it's there in internet, and you have to go through it and you have to learn. This is for state students I'm telling. Whereas for CBSE, it's better you buy Oswald, or you somehow, if you have a library and get 10 years ka paper, then it is good. After revision, if you sit and solve only the papers, that is way more than enough for you to score more than 95. Okay, provided you are also studying not just maths and science, you are also studying other subjects also, because other subjects are also important to get aggregate around 90-95%. Okay, so coming to the next topic, that is oxidation. This word we have learnt way back. Okay, way back in many classes, I believe. Okay, so now what do you mean by oxidation? Oxidation, ठीक है, कहीं पे तो सुना सुना लग रहा है, लेकिन चलते हैं, ठीक है, लेकिन understand, we'll understand, try to understand. Oxidation मतलब it is nothing but gaining of ऑक्सीजन. ओके, मतलब किसी भी रिएक्शन में अगर ऑक्सीजन रिएक्टेंट में ऑक्सीजन मिलके ऑक्सीजन गेन कर रहा है, कोई भी प्रोडक्ट, कोई भी रिएक्टेंट ऑक्सीजन को गेन कर रहा है, उसको हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? ऑक्सीडेशन रिएक्शन. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ आई टेक C plus O2, you are getting what? CO2. See, the reactant is reacting with oxygen and it is gaining an oxygen. It is gaining, and the new product formed is gained an oxygen. So this we call it as a oxidation. This type of reaction we call it as a oxidation reaction. Okay, now क्या सर सिर्फ ऑक्सीजन गेन करने से ऑक्सीडेशन होता है क्या? नहीं, ठीक है, इसमें एक और डेफिनेशन है. वो क्या बोलते हैं? whenever a reaction, a type of reaction in which hydrogen is lost can also be considered as a oxidation reaction. मतलब क्या? in any reaction when hydrogen is lost can also be considered as a oxidation reaction. Okay, so hopefully you have understood this part. So just write here, not just gaining of oxygen, also loss of hydrogen. Okay, this is also called as a oxidation reaction. Now coming to what do you mean by a reduction? Okay, reduction is nothing but gain of hydrogen. क्या? gain of hydrogen, lose of oxygen. एग्जैक्ट इसका उल्टा है. exact opposite of our oxidation reaction. Basically here what is gained? Gaining of hydrogen and loss of oxygen, right? So this we call it as a reduction reaction. What do we call this as? A reduction reaction. So take any example where reduction process is going on. Okay, so I will take CuO plus H2. Okay, so what happens here? Here copper lost oxygen and again basically here two types of reactions are going on, but we will focus on what is happening. The copper oxide, cupric oxide, you can also call it as the copper oxide or cupric oxide. Cupric oxide with the hydrogen, what happened to the copper? Copper lost its oxygen to form water. So this type of reactions is also called as a reduction reaction. Okay, now both oxidation and reduction takes place in a single reaction only, simultaneously. Okay, continuous, simultaneously means एक साथ अगर ऑक्सीडेशन और रिडक्शन हो रहा है किसी रिएक्शन में, तो उसको हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? रेडॉक्स रिएक्शन. व्हाट डू वी कॉल इट एज अ रेडॉक्स रिएक्शन. एग्जांपल यही है. The example is given here. This can also be considered for a redox. Why? Because see, copper has lost oxygen. What? Copper has a lost oxygen. अगर किसी ने ऑक्सीजन को लूज किया तो क्या बोलते हैं हम लोग? रिडक्शन. सही है ना? और हाइड्रोजन हैज अ गेन्ड ऑक्सीजन. क्या गेन किया है? ऑक्सीजन को गेन किया है. ओके, so such type of reaction are called as a redox reaction. So redox नाम में ही है, RED मतलब reduction and OX मतलब oxidation. So such type of reaction in which both oxidation and reduction takes place simultaneously, we call it as a redox reaction. Hopefully you have understood this. So next topic is corrosion. By corrosion तो हम लोग बहुत छोटे से पढ़ के आ रहे हैं. corrosion मतलब क्या है? On reacting with air, water and moisture, a metal starts to corrode. A metal starts to corrode. This process we call it as a corrosion. This process we call it as a corrosion. One of the example is a rusting of iron. Now rusting हो तो क्या होता है? मशीन खराब होता है, items खराब होता है, and also other things, machine, metal corrode, and lots of any materials will happen if it is made up of metals. Okay, now how do you prevent this? Okay, so rusting also corrodes the structure of any body. Okay, that means if any body, any material is made up of iron or metal, it can disharm, I mean it can उसको structure को खराब कर सकता है. So that is there. Okay, now how do you prevent rusting of iron? How do you prevent corrosion? Okay, so एक बात है, तुम लोगों ने देखा होगा तुम्हारा घर में सब, अगर पुराने विंडोज और दरवाजे कुछ भी हो, अगर वो आयरन से बना है, most of the time it is made up of iron. If it is made up of iron, that means you will see they have painted it with the oil paint or whatever, metal paint or something. Why do you think they have doing that? एक डिजाइन के लिए होगा, हाँ ठीक है, लेकिन मेन रीजन है so that the metal which is there does not corrode, does not undergo rusting. Okay, so because of that only, to prevent that, they paint it, painting the iron articles we call it as. Okay, next क्या हो सकता है? Okay, next think. Okay, okay, कुछ पता है? Okay, so तुम्हारा घर पे बहुत जब मैं छोटा था तो मुझे बहुत साइकिल का मन था, तो मेरा पापा ने मेरे को एक दिन एक नया साइकिल खरीद के दिया. ठीक है, सो नया साइकिल खरीद के दिया. सिंस वी आर मोर नियर टू बीच साइड, सिंस वी आर इन मंगलोर, इट्स मोर नियर टू बीच साइड. आफ्टर डे और सो, like after a month or 2 months, I was not greasing my chain. Okay, so I saw after some while my chains had been rusted. Okay, so my dad shouted at me. He's like, भाई अगर तू इस साइकिल को बचाना चाहता है और साइकिल को अच्छे से रखना चाहता है तो पहले चेन ना जो भी पार्ट्स है, जो भी आयरन पार्ट्स है, उसको पहले ग्रीस एंड ऑयल कर. Why did he tell that? He told it because since we are near to sea, there is more moisture and air. Okay, because of that more of the iron particles will iron materials will get rusted very easily, very fast. So that is the reason he told me to prevent this you need to put grease and oil. Okay, so one of the other method to prevent rusting is to put grease and oil to the machines and other things. Okay, example cycle, and also your vehicles, bikes and all. Even bikes are not less, because bikes chain are basically made up of iron metals. Okay, so obviously it will get rusted, so you have to grease it constantly so that there is no deterioration of corrosion of any materials. Okay, then galvanizing, usage of galvanized metal. Galvanization तुम्हें पता है, ठीक है, इसके बारे में मैं ज़्यादा एक्सप्लेन करने नहीं जा रहा हूँ. So please remember galvanizing the metal. So these are all the prevention methods for corrosion. Okay, then coming to rancidity. Okay, what do you mean by rancidity? Rancidity means मतलब क्या है, किसी को पता है? Okay, rancidity. Okay, so rancidity, what do you mean by rancidity? Okay, एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ. सोचो तुम्हारा माँ ने तुम्हारे लिए बहुत मुश्किल से एक खाना वाना सब बनाया था, ठीक है, और तुम फ्री फायर खेलने में बिजी थे या तो पबजी खेलने में बिजी थे. ठीक है, पबजी तो अभी बैन हुआ है मेरे सबसे. तो तुम लोग फ्री फायर खेलने में बिजी थे और तुम फ्री फायर खेल रहे हो, तुम्हारा माँ काम में बिजी है और वो बोल रही है मुझे बाहर जाके आना है, मुझे काम है अभी, तो तुम्हें खाना बना के रखा है, तुम इसको खाओ. So she had made really good maybe noodles or something, and you were so busy in playing, playing free fire. After an hour or so, maybe around 3 hours होने के बाद तुम्हें भूख लगने लगा, तुम गए, तुम जब खाने के लिए ट्राई किया, ठीक है, तो इसका टेस्ट खराब आ रहा है. Okay, when you're eating it, you feel that the taste of this noodle is something bit spoiled. Okay, what is the reason for it? Okay, the reason is rancidity. Rancidity, what is happening here is whatever oil and fat present on your food is slowly undergoing oxidation. Because of that you get a sour and खराब हुआ टेस्ट आता है. ठीक है, so this is what we call it as a rancidity. Okay, so you get a smell also. Okay, if you smell it also you get a foul odor. Okay, मतलब खराब हुआ स्मेल आता है, खराब हुआ स्मेल आता है. So this is what we call it as a rancidity, which happens due to slow oxidation of the oil and fat present in the food. Okay, now next how to prevent this. Okay, so to prevent this you have to close it in a airtight container. जो भी फूड बनाया है उसको तुम लोग एयरटाइट कंटेनर में क्लोज करके रखना है. ठीक है, पैक करके रखना है. ओके, देन आफ्टर योर फूड इज कुक्ड you need to keep it in a refrigerator. Okay, so basically you are keeping any food at a low temperature. As the low temperature is there, prevention of oxidation can be done. Okay, so think about it, why low temperature में reduction oxidation process नहीं होता है. ठीक है, so this is a question for you. Okay, now with this we are done with the chapter. Hopefully you have understood till what I have done. Okay, and this is not a very difficult chapter. These are really easy chapter which you can do I think within 1 hour or 1.5 hour or 2 hours. Okay, I think within 2 hours you can finish off with this, or maybe 1.5 hour. उतना easy chapter है. अगर concept ठीक से समझ में आ गया भाई, इसमें कुछ नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है. ठीक है, one of the easy chapter in entire textbook. Okay, so basically जब तुम first time आ रहे हो, ये chemical balancing सब सीख रहे हो, तो तुम्हें थोड़ा confuse होगा, जाहिर सी बात है. लेकिन if you have understood 9th channel concept properly, these are nothing. Okay, these are one of the easy chapters, okay, where you can score very easily. So practice more, okay. And as always, I'm telling anyone who's interested to come and join, please come to my tuition. We have two centers, that is one is Panambur and one in Mangalore, okay, PVS. So if you want to study offline, please come and join Clever Coast Education and become a part of this family, okay. All good things will come with good decisions, okay. Thank you for today's class. Please practice, okay. Practice makes a man perfect, बोलते हैं ना, जितना प्रैक्टिस करोगे उतना तुम परफेक्ट हो जाओगे, ठीक है. सो अच्छे से प्रैक्टिस करो, अच्छे से सीखो. हैप्पी लर्निंग.